Hello and welcome everyone to IT Pro Guide. Mohammed Niaz with you. In this video, we're gonna see how to migrate your Office 365 users from one tenant to other. What is a migration? Migration means moving your data and users from source to target. So in this migration, Office 365 tenant to tenant migration, source and target are Office 365, and Microsoft doesn't provide any in-house mechanism to do this migration. So there are three options I suggest you to migrate your Office 365 tenant from one tenant to other tenant. The first option is using a backup application. In this video, I'm going to show you how to migrate your Office 365 tenant to target tenant using Veeam Backup application. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a backup from the source tenant and we restore these source tenant users to target tenant. And this involves manual backup, restore and creation of users in the target tenant. The other mechanism you can adopt is to export all users as a PST, all users data as a PST from source tenant, and import these PSTs into target tenant, and you have to create the users manually there. So these two methods we're going to show in this video and also in the coming video. The other option is to use a third-party application. So when you use a third-party applications, all the operations like moving data from one users to another, creating users in the target tenant, all this is going to automatically done by the third-party applications. So if you want to save a couple of dollars, then you can adopt one of the method I suggest in this video and the coming video. Or if you're working in a large organization and you found difficult to manage all these manual tasks, then go for third-party application. Let us discuss some of the possible scenario that you may meet when you decide to go for a tenant to tenant migration. When you move a user from a source tenant to a target tenant, you can use the target domain name or you can use the source domain name. If you're going to use the target tenant domain name, then you don't need to add your custom domain name that you were using in the source tenant to target tenant. If you are planning to use the same domain name as it was in the source tenant, then after migrating the user data and users to target tenant, you need to remove the domain name from the source tenant and add it to the target tenant. So these are the two possible scenarios that comes in tenant to tenant migration. Look at our migration demo setup. We have two tenant, source tenant and target tenant. In the source tenant, we have Cloud Labs 365.onmicrosoft.com, our initial domain, and the custom domain that we use is cloudlabs.online, and our target domain is m365proguide.com, and the tenant name is m365proguide.onmicrosoft.com. After migration, we need to achieve all the users to be moved to tenant 2, that is our target tenant m365proguide.onmicrosoft.com, and also I want to move the custom domain name that I was in use with the source tenant to target tenant. Now following are the steps that involved in this tenant to tenant migration. We're going to use backup and restore mechanism to migrate the data of each users. So first we're going to set up Veeam Backup application, then we take backup from source tenant, that is Cloud Labs 365. Then we need to create new users in target tenant with initial domain name, that is m365proguide.onmicrosoft.com. Then we're going to restore the backup that we took from source tenant, that is Cloud Labs 365, to m365proguide, that is our target tenant. Once we have the users and the data in target tenant, the next step is to remove the cloudlabs.online custom domain from source tenant, then verify and add it to the target tenant, that is m365proguide tenant. So now we have our domain, users and the data in target tenant. Then we need to change the user's email address from initial domain name to the custom domain name, that is cloudlabs.online, and that is the end of migration. For Outlook users 2010 or above, you need to remove Outlook user profile and create it again after the migration. And users in 2007 and or 2010 Outlook, when you restart the client, the auto discover will configure the client and rebuild the .ost file, which is much easier. And for the Skype for Business client, once the migration is completed, as it is a new profile, as you move the user from one tenant to another, you need to add contacts. Then regarding the license at target tenant, make sure you have enough license to accommodate all the users that you're going to migrate from your source tenant. When you set up an Office 365, you have different choice. You can use Azure AD to manage your users, or you can synchronize your on-premises Active Directory with Azure AD so that your user management will be done on the on-premises Active Directory. If you have such a setup in your Office 365 and you're going to do a tenant to tenant migration, then what you have to do is you have to cancel or you have to break the Active Directory synchronization with the source tenant and change the connection to the target tenant, so that all the users gonna synchronize to the target tenant. By this way, you can easily create an account in the target tenant. If you don't have a directory synchronization in use, then we need to create all the users manually. So if you have a directory synchronization, then you need to just break the synchronization with the source tenant and connect to the target tenant so that all the users will be listed there. But if you don't have an Active Directory synchronization in place, then you need to create all the users account manually. To create it manually, if you have more number of users, you can import a CSV list into Office Admin Center, and we will show in this demo how to do that. Once you complete the migration, the end users may call you and say that like we are getting email send failure, something like that. The reason for that is Outlook autocomplete list. So this need to be cleared, and to remove all the recipients from your autocomplete list, you will find a link in the description. So just go through it. I hope we have discussed almost all the required information that we need before we start our migration. So let's move to the step-by-step demo. As we saw in the slides, we have two tenants, Cloud Labs 365 and M365 Pro Guide, and we're going to migrate users from Cloud Labs, what you see in the left side, to the tenant in the right side, that is M365 Pro Guide. And we have users in both tenants. We have active users in both tenants. And when you look at the users, you can see some users are same. We have account at Cloud Labs Online and accounts at m365proguide.com. So when you move users from Cloud Labs Online to M365 Pro Guide, you will have a name clash, like with two accounts, two sales gonna be in the same tenant. So this we need to tackle with some adjustments in the alias. So I will show you how to do this. When we create users in the target domain, we will see how to do that. The next step here is to create users at target tenant. And when you create users, you have to create with initial target tenant name, that is m365proguide.onmicrosoft.com. So let us see how to do that. Now we are in the admin center of Cloud Labs, that is our source tenant, and you can see that I have some users here. To make my life easier, I'm going to export the active users into an Excel sheet so that I can copy and paste the username, email address, whatever the details I need from here. So you can also generate a copy of Excel sheet like this, and you can copy the email address, first name, second name, whatever the details that we need for creating an Excel sheet to import the users into target tenant. In Admin Center, we have an option to create bulk users or multiple users in Office 365, and here is a documentation from Microsoft on how to do that. To do that, we need to download the sample spreadsheet and prepare users and the details of the users in the same format as in the sample spreadsheet. So let's do that now. So we have downloaded the sample spreadsheet to create multiple users at the same time in target tenant. The only difference here is instead of creating a user with a custom domain name in target tenant, we need to create users with initial domain name. So the initial domain name of target tenant is m365proguide.onmicrosoft.com, and later we will change it. Now the spreadsheet is ready, and if you look at the username, you can see that all the username I have created here with initial tenant name in the target tenant. Now let us see how to import this CSV file and create multiple users in a single shot. For that, go to the admin center of target tenant and click on the users and active users, and from there you will see an option add multiple users. Click on it, and here also you have an option to get this sample CSV file. If you want, you can download it from here. Now let us import the users. The CSV is imported. You can click next, then select the options, sign in allowed, and I'm going to assign licenses and I'm going to assign license at this point. If you want to restrict some application access, you can restrict at this point, then click next. Now you can see that 5 users has been created successfully and 2 users could not be created, and let us look at the reason. This may happen to you also, because when you move users from one tenant to other tenant, you may have same users, and if you try to create the initial username with the same name, then if there is a conflict of username, then you need to create the username with some additional names. So for example, here the accounts I'm going to replace with accounts cloud labs at m365proguide.onmicrosoft.com. But this is not the exact email I need. But once we complete the migration, I can add additional alias and I can assign it as a primary email address. By this way, if you have conflict with the same username, you can manage it. Now I have corrected the username and the only 2 pending users in this Excel sheet. Now let us import this. Click on the add multiple users again, then point the user file, then as we did before, assign the license and click next. Then you can see this time we had successfully, and this time you can see we have successfully created the users. And you can see that I have selected to receive the username and password to the administrator email address, so that you will receive all the email addresses and passwords of the newly created users into your inbox. Let us click send and close. So now from the Outlook of admin, you can see that the usernames and passwords has received to the inbox. Now we have the username and password of all the users that we have created in the target tenant. The next step is to take a backup from source tenant Cloud Labs 365 and restore those emails to target tenant to the newly created account. And for this task, we're going to use Veeam Backup for Office 365. And in Veeam Backup, you have to do one by one. You have to select each user account and restore it. There is no option to do all at one time. If you want to do this as a single step, then you have to choose export PST and import PST method that we're going to see in the coming video, or you have to go for a third-party application. If you don't have Veeam Backup for Office 365 in your organization, you can go for a trial version. A trial version is available for 30 days. So let us download Veeam for Office 365 trial version now. Now the setup for Veeam Backup Office 365 is ready. Once you complete the extraction, you will see that there are 3 applications inside this Backup Office 365. Veeam Backup 365 and Explorer for Exchange is the 2 what we required for this demo purpose. I need to install .NET Framework 4.7.2 as a prerequisite, so let us do that first. Now the prerequisites has completed. Let us complete the installation of backup application Veeam. The installation is very straightforward. You can just complete the wizard by accepting the license agreement and just click next and complete the wizard. Now let us install Explorer for Exchange. Now the installation has completed. Now open your Veeam Backup application. Click Connect. Now we need to license Veeam Backup as we have a trial license. Let's do that first. Click on the install, then find out your license, then click OK. You can see the license details here that is available for 30 days. Click OK. Now we have a license to Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. So before we configure the backup, let us configure a backup repository to store the backup. Go to Backup Infrastructure, then click on the Backup Repositories. You can see there is a default backup repository in C drive that may be not acceptable for you, so you can add a new repository. Then enter a name for your backup repository, then click next, then point out the location, then click OK, then click next. You can complete the wizard. I'm not going to explain all this because the purpose of this demo is just to get the user's data and migrate it to the target tenant. So you can leave this default setup and complete the wizard. Now the backup repository is ready. Before we configure backup, I need to give some permission for global administrator account. For that, go to the admin center, and from there you can see that Exchange Admin Center. Click on it. It will open Exchange Admin Center. From there, go to permissions, and we need to add some roles to the global administrator account, and that is what we're going to do here. Click on add button, then give a meaningful name, then add roles. Now find out application impersonation, then click OK, then add member. Here I'm going to add my global administrator account. Click OK. Now save it. Now the permission required for configuring Veeam Backup for Office 365 is ready. Let's go back to the Veeam application and backup our source tenant. Now from the Veeam application, select organization and add organization. So we're going to add our source tenant here. So make appropriate selections, Microsoft Office 365, and select the services that you want to backup. Then click next. Now select basic authentication, then click next. Now enter the global administrator account of source tenant and enter the password. Now you can see that Veeam Backup adding the organization to backup application. Click finish. Now we have added our source tenant to Veeam Backup application. The next step is to take a backup of all the users. For that, go to the backup. Then we're going to create a new backup job for the newly added organization. Then click next. Now you can back up the entire organization. So I'm going to add users and select the users here. Then add. Click next. If you have any objects to exclude, you can do it here. Click next, and at this point you can show backup repository to store this backup. You can just select start the job when I click create, and as this is for a migration purpose, I'm not giving any importance for any other configurations. So let us click create and complete this wizard. Now a backup job is running. Now you can see the backup job has completed, and there are some warnings that is related to the OneDrive because I don't have any data in my OneDrive account, as this is for a demo purpose. Now the next step is to restore these users emails to target tenant, and for that we need Veeam Explorer for Microsoft Exchange. You will find it in the start menu. Open Veeam Explorer for Microsoft Exchange. Now you can see the recent backup data is available in Veeam Explorer. Once you expand, you will see all the details, all the emails, calendar details, contacts of all the accounts. And from this point, we can restore individual account to target tenant. For this demo purpose, I'm going to choose one account and try to restore to target tenant. So I need credentials of user in target tenant. The mailbox address in target tenant is learn@m365proguide.onmicrosoft.com. That is the initial domain name. Now enter the credentials, then click next. Select restore to the original folder, then click next. Make appropriate selections. If you have anything to exclude, you can exclude at this point, then complete the restore. Now the restore for one account almost complete, which means all the data at the source tenant for this account is now available in the target tenant. And do this for all the accounts. Now in order to verify backup and restore, let us log into the target tenant. Now you can see that I'm going to log into target tenant with account name at initial domain name in the target tenant. So that is learn@m365proguide.onmicrosoft.com. Enter the credentials and complete the sign in. Now you can see all the emails are available in inbox. Look at the calendar. You can see all my meetings are also available. And if you go to the contacts are also available, and tasks also available. So which means that when you choose this method to migrate, you get your emails, calendar, contacts and tasks to the target tenant. So now we have all the users available in target tenant, and we restored our emails, calendars, all the data to target tenant users. But the users in the target tenant is not with the custom domain. It is with the initial domain of the tenant. We need to convert, or we need to change this to cloudlabs.online. That is our custom domain. So let us see how to do this. Now log into the source tenant. From the admin center, go to users. From the admin center, go to users. Click on the active users. We'll list out all the users. Select all user account. Then go to change domain option. Then from the select a domain, move it to initial domain name, that is cloudlabs365.onmicrosoft.com. So that the domain name now it is free. There is no user account assigned with the custom domain name cloudlabs.online. Now all the users have shifted to initial domain name. Now it is time to remove this domain from source tenant so that we can add this domain to the target tenant. Now go to the settings, then from there select domains. Then you can see cloudlabs.online is a default. Let's change it to the initial domain name. Set it as a default one. Now the custom domain is completely free to remove it. Just select and you will find a remove button. Just click on it. And at this point you will see if there is any further dependencies on the domain, custom domain that you're gonna remove. If everything is fine for you, just click OK to remove it. Just click on the remove button. Now the domain has been removed from your account. Now the domain has successfully removed from the source tenant. Now let us move to the target tenant and add this domain, so that the newly created users we can assign cloudlabs.online domain. Now log into the target tenant. Now from the admin center, go to settings, then click on domains. You can see there are two domains available at present. One is the initial domain name and one custom domain name. Now click on the add domain button. Then enter the custom domain name that you want to add here. Then click on use this domain. Now you need to verify the ownership of this domain. This domain is registered with GoDaddy, so my life is easier. I just need to authorize it. Otherwise, what you can do is you can add text record. You can copy this txt value and add it to your domain, add it to your DNS manager. I'm going to use sign into GoDaddy option so that I can quickly get verified with this domain. Click on the connect button so that the verification will complete. Click on the connect button. Now the domain verification part has completed. It is time to add exchange records to our domain. So you have three options. Either you can do it later, or you can add your own records, or you can let the Microsoft to add this. As my domain DNS hosting provider is GoDaddy, I can go with the first step. Otherwise, you can add records manually, like you can copy the records from here and you can paste it to your DNS manager. You can see I have one MX record to be added and one CNAME for auto discover and one TST record. As I'm using GoDaddy as my DNS hosting provider, I let Microsoft to automatically add all the records which needed for this domain. So select let Microsoft add option, then click continue. Now you can have a preview of what are the records that is going to be added to your domain. Then you can click configure and you just need to authorize at this point. Now all the necessary records that required for your custom domain has added successfully. Now it is time to change all the users that we added to target tenant to cloudlabs.online for you to your custom domain. Now from the admin center, go to users and select active users. Then select the newly added users so that we can change the users from the initial tenant domain name to the newly added custom domain. We have two accounts, one accounts which were migrated from source tenant to target tenant, and to change it, go to manage users name and email, and from here I'm going to add accounts at m365proguide.onmicrosoft.com. Then select the domain you need, and I'm going to make this as primary email address, then save the changes. You have to repeat this step for all the users that you shifted from source tenant to the target tenant. Thank you for watching this video, and for more videos, subscribe my YouTube channel.